Take a look.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy Big Hero Chris back at you with another one. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe, give me a thumbs up, ring the notification bell, hit me up on Twitter, TikTok, the community post. You already know the vibes. And it's Wednesday, so you know what that means. It's time for another AEW Dynamite review. And going into this week's episode of Dynamite, man, there was only technically two actual matches announced, and then you had the two women's matches. And normally Tony Khan will drop the matches throughout the day, most likely the day of. And for this week's episode of Dynamite, Tony Khan tweeted that there was a lot of issues with injuries and a whole bunch of other things going on, so that's why we really didn't get a full card announced. But AEW, I will give AEW the credit that they deserve, is when it comes to situations like these, they can always make the best out of a bad situation, or a not so good situation, and still put on a pretty entertaining show. And this one took place in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I believe, and it started off with the Blackpool Combat Club, John Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli, who's very European, taking on FTR. And this was a pretty hot tag team match, man. I really don't know why they hate each other so much. I guess for the love of the game, but these things happen. But as far as the tag team match goes, it was fine. It was a really fun match. And when this match was announced last week, I was like, whoa, it's cool for an episode of Dynamite, but it kind of doesn't make sense that this isn't happening at Revolution, because FTR is from North Carolina. So you would think that this match would take place at Revolution. Lo and behold, to my surprise, the match that took place on this episode of Dynamite actually went to a time limit draw. And I'm noticing lately that Tony Khan is, doing more time limit draws. It's cool every once in a while, but I hope they don't become too overly dependent on it. It's cool here and there. I just hope they don't become overly dependent on it like WWE with disqualification finishes and the surprise roll up and everything like that. Hopefully they don't spam it too much. But this match did go to a time limit draw, and then after the match, FTR and the BCC started fighting. They're fighting. You have officials and referees and security out there trying to break up the fight. And even later, you had FTR doing an interview where they pretty much called out the Blackpool Combat Club. They said, we can run this again at Revolution. And then Moxley and Claudio pull up, and they're trying to fight some more. You have Orange Cassidy in the back. Apparently, what was supposed to happen, it was supposed to be Trent taking on Mike Bennett, but Trent was injured. This was one of the injuries that Tony Khan tweeted about. And this makes sense for the Kingdom to soften up Orange Cassidy for his match against Roderick Strong. So that does make sense. But this leads us to our match, Orange Cassidy versus Mike Bennett, and it was fine. There was even one spot where Mike Bennett did an old Rock move where during the middle of the match, he gets on commentary and talks to the people and whatever. So that was okay. To the surprise of nobody, Orange Cassidy ended up getting the win, and then the Kingdom ended up jumping Orange Cassidy after the match. And I'm thinking, okay, who's gonna come out and save him, because Chuck's injured, Trent's injured, Rocky Romero, I don't know what he has going on. But of all people to come out, it was Jake Hager. And I kind of understand, because this show did take place in Oklahoma, but fucking Jake Hager, like who's checking for Jake Hager in 2024? What made it even crazier was this dude actually got a reaction. Again, I understand it's Oklahoma, but Oklahoma, y'all don't really have that much to look forward to when you're popping for Jake Hager like he's The Rock, really? And apparently this Friday on Rampage is going to be Jake Hager taking on Roderick Strong. So have fun with that, Oklahoma. So after this, you had a random backstage segment between Ruby Soho and Cool Hand Ange. They're finally back together. They're gonna go on their date. Ruby Soho's been dealing with Saraya, hating at Saraya, and that whole situation. But love conquers all. They're going on their date, and as they're leaving, a vehicle pulls up, and it's Ric Flair. Ric Flair hops out, barely, but you know, he hops out nonetheless. And he's walking, he's doing an interview with Renee. And I'm gonna be honest, as far as this interview he did with Renee, I really couldn't understand what Ric Flair was saying. Like, I got as close to the TV as I could. I turned it up a little bit, but I couldn't understand what Ric Flair was saying. And then after this, he walks to the Young Bucks locker room. So he's meeting up with Matthew and Nicholas for what? I don't know. But you know, Ric Flair, I'm guessing he's still going to be in the corner for Sting, or maybe he's going to turn on Sting. You know, Ric Flair doesn't have a history of doing that, so we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully he's not trying to give Matthew and Nicholas woo wings, because those look absolutely disgusting. So after this, we have an in-ring promo segment from Daniel Garcia, and something I thought they would actually do, and they're actually pulling it off, especially with the way the Patriarchy attacked Adam Copeland last week and hit him with a concerto, is leading to Daniel Garcia versus Christian at Revolution for the TNT Championship. So I'm figuring that either Adam Copeland is going to interfere on behalf of the Patriarchy, or maybe he turns heel, or maybe somebody else gets involved and interferes and costs Daniel Garcia the match. But I would like to see Daniel Garcia win the TNT Championship. Will it happen? We got to wait and see. But, you know, as far as this promo goes, Daniel Garcia is saying like the people have always been there with him through his ups and his downs, when he was dancing, when he was losing in the Continental Classic. The people still had his back, and he wants to give something back to the people, and that's by beating Christian Cage for the TNT Championship. And of course, when you say a person's name so much in wrestling, eventually they got to come out. Christian came out, and he did exactly what Christian does best, and makes fun of the fact that this man doesn't have a father. How come Christian knows when you don't have a father? This is why I could never be a wrestler, because I don't have a father. My father's dead. So if Christian talked about my daddy, I would probably have to beat his ass for real. Like, damn, the wrestling, we gotta fight for realsies. But Christian does make fun of the fact that Daniel Garcia doesn't have a father. He even doxes his whole family. He mentions Daniel Garcia's mother by name. He mentions his father by name. And he says, Christian, he has a special place in hell waiting just for him. But Daniel Garcia says at Revolution, he's going to take the TNT Championship away from him. And he goes to fight with Nick Wayne. And then Luchasaurus comes in. He's trying to, you know, run interference. But Daddy Magic comes. I'm guessing Daddy Magic is kind of like Daniel Garcia's stepdad or whatever. So he comes in, he helps out Daniel Garcia. So it is official. Revolution, March 3rd. Christian Cage, Daniel Garcia, TNT Championship. I'm here for it, man. I am here for it. And speaking of Revolution, we're doing more build to the women's match between Deonna Purrazzo and Timeless Toni Storm. Timeless Toni Storm wrestled against some woman. I don't know what her name is. It doesn't matter anyway. It was a squash match. Toni Storm ended up beating her with Deonna Purrazzo's own finishing move, the Venus de Milo, the submission, made the girl tap out. And as Timeless Toni Storm is leaving, you have Deonna Purrazzo comes out, and she steals the spotlight from Toni Storm. And there was even one cool shot of, you know, Toni Storm being in black and white and Deonna Purrazzo being in Technicolor, regular color, you know. And it was a cool half and half spice shot. And Deonna Purrazzo actually ended up wrestling a former knockout Madison Rain, so that was a good, you know, knockout rematch for them too. And it was an okay match. There was one scary spot where Deonna Purrazzo dropped Madison Rain on her head, so hopefully Madison Rain is okay. Deonna Purrazzo ended up getting the win, and then Timeless Toni Storm tried to attack Deonna Purrazzo after the match, and she threw a shoe at her, and you know, building up more of the match between these two women. So speaking of Matthew and Nicholas, we had a backstage segment from Darby Allin and Sting, and Darby held up this picture of Sting with his sons, and he brought up the fact that Matthew and Nicholas beat up these poor men a couple weeks ago. And then Sting revealed that his father passed away. Hopefully Christian didn't see this. You know, Christian, you stay away from Sting, you leave him alone. He doesn't have anything left to lose besides those AEW Tag Team Championships. And who knows how Ric Flair will factor into this equation. But you know, Sting's last match will be against the Young Bucks for the AEW Tag Team Championships. So after this, we had a segment that I almost checked out for, and I'm kind of glad I did. And it was Mr. Wardlow making his way to the ring, and he's getting it on the mic. He tells Tony Schiavone to get the hell out of his ring before he beats his ass again. And then Wardlow talks trash about MJF, and more importantly, he talks trash about CM Punk. He doesn't really mention him by name, but you kind of figure that's who he's talking about, because he mentioned best in the world. He mentioned the fact that he beat CM Punk worse than anybody else has ever beat him, and that CM Punk's body is still failing him due to the attack of Wardlow. And he also mentioned that MJF hasn't been seen since Wardlow put his hands on him. So, you know, Wardlow is making a pretty good case as to why he should be AEW champion. And the whole time I'm thinking, like, why couldn't we do this a whole lot sooner? Wardlow was making some valid points. He was pointing out the fact that the people were behind him. They were chanting his name like it was Goldberg in the 90s. And the fact that AEW didn't really get behind him like they should have. He mentioned that people should be fired and locked up forever. And I'm like, bro was spitting a little bit. He's not wrong, because Wardlow low-key could have been one of the big guys, one of the next big thing for AEW, possibly a future world champion. After this, we had a backstage segment from the Bang Bang Scissor Gang, and Jay White mentioned that he wants to be a Collision Cowboy with daddy ass and one of his sons. And Jay White low-key looked kind of annoyed by the Acclaim. So it's looking like we are getting that heel turn. We are getting the ultimate betrayal of the Bullet Club, turning their backs on the Acclaim once again. So that's cool, I guess. You know, it is what it is. I think they're going to have a trios match this Saturday on Collision. So there's that. We had a hype package. Thank you, O'Shea Jackson. Thank you, people who've been wanting this. Thank you for people who've been getting on AEW's ass for the longest time. But we had a hype package for Will Ospreay, who's making his way to AEW. Matter of fact, he's going to be on Dynamite next week. Bro, my best friend Will Ospreay, one of the best wrestlers in the world. And speaking of Will Ospreay, you have the Don Callis family talking about how there's going to be a Meat Madness match. I think Wardlow is going to be involved. Powerhouse Hobbs is going to be involved. And Don Callis said that he's going to pick up Will Ospreay himself from the UK to bring him to Dynamite next week. So, you know, they're teasing something going on between Will Ospreay and the Don Callis family. I'm not mad at it. I like Will Ospreay, and the fact that we get to see him wrestle Takeshita at Revolution is pretty neat, if I do say so myself. This leads us to our main event. Earlier in the night, you had Hangman, RVD, and Hook talking about the match, the trios match. Hangman's going full Yosemite Sam. He shaved off his beard. He's just straight mustaching now. And, you know, he's getting on Rob Van Dam and Hook. He's saying, listen, we got to do whatever we can to beat up Swerve. And Rob Van Dam's like, listen, is Nana going to be out there? I heard he's got some, you know, some of that sticky icky. And hey, man, he's leaning more and more heel. He's really obsessed with Swerve and whatever. So this leads us to our main event. And this was a fine match. It was fun. There was a whole bunch of shenanigans going on. You had Swerve, Brian Cage, and Samoa Joe taking on the aforementioned Hangman, Hook, and Rob Van Dam. And I say this every time Rob Van Dam wrestles in AEW. He looks like the Rob Van Dam of old. Maybe not prime Rob Van Dam, but he still looks good for his age, man. He's still doing his thing. He's hitting the Rolling Thunders and the kicks and the 5-star frog splashes, and you absolutely love to see it. Swerve's doing his thing. Brian Cage, I'm assuming they're going to have a match on the pre-show, the buy-in, him and Hook or whatever, for the FTW Championship. And Samoa Joe actually made Rob Van Dam pass out. And there was even one spot where they were doing the whole can they coexist thing. Swerve accidentally kicked Samoa Joe. Hangman put Swerve through a table. And then after the match, they're all looking at each other. Swerve, Hangman, and Samoa Joe hyping up the match, the triple threat match for the AEW Championship at Revolution. So, you know, on paper, it wasn't a banger of a card, but the end result was an overall fun show. With that being said, guys, let me know what you thought of this week's episode of Dynamite in the comment section below. Of course, as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You guys take care. Be easy. I'm out. Peace.